Do you ever feel like you are being bullied into moral submission by the media, social media, Twitterverse, YouTube stars, celebrities, whatever? Are you sick of it? I am. Are you sick of it? Oh, we're going to talk about it today. I'm sick of the hypocrisy, sick of the lies, sick of them trying to make me do what they want me to do. We're going to look specifically how the Me Too movement has been politicized and become a fire starter for culture war and how that affects people of faith like you and like me right here on Cooper Stuff. Cooper Stuff! Welcome back to Cooper Stuff, everybody. How's it going? We're going to have to do just jump into this thing here because we got a lot to talk about. First of all, updates from where I live in Wisconsin. I don't know if you've seen it, but the governor of Wisconsin originally was not going to let Wisconsin start opening up in a big way right now. Apparently, there was going to have to be completely shut down. Apparently, the Supreme Court overturned our governor. And so now we found out that we are going to be able to start opening up. But then I heard this morning that the county that I live in is going against the Supreme Court's ruling. I don't know how it's going to turn out. All that I want to do is go sit down and get a cheeseburger. I don't even think I'm asking that much. I want to go into a restaurant. I'll wear the mask. Masks are cool anyway, all right? I'll wear the mask. I could be like Jason from Friday the 13th. Anyway, wear the mask. I want to get a cheeseburger, and I want to get a nice fountain soda, a huge one with some free refills. Anyway, that's what's going on here. I don't know if you've noticed, but, as we talked about a few weeks ago, that everything is becoming so politicized now, and even all of the lockdown stuff, I'm sure you've seen on the news, is becoming really, really partisan, even more than when we talked a couple of weeks ago. Everybody is fighting about what it's going to be, and so now we basically have politicized it to a point that there are people, maybe you've seen this, there was a woman in Texas, I can't remember her name, but down in Texas, she got arrested because she was going to open up her salon. And she was told not to do it. She ended up getting arrested. I'm sure you've seen it. It's been all over the news. And the judge there in Texas said that he would basically we forget. We will not send you to prison for a week. I think she had 5 days in prison or something of that nature. $7,000 fine. I can't remember what. He said basically we will forgive all those things if you will just apologize for how selfish you are, that all you care about is yourself, and you're willing to put others at harm's risk just to kind of keep your business going. She refused to do that, as you may have seen. Point is that this is beginning to happen more and more now. I saw last night, this is when I'm filming this, last night on the news, I believe it was Pennsylvania's governor, that was also saying the same thing. We're not letting people open, and basically putting on a moral pressure, all right? And I mean, that's the way it goes, and I get it. But what the divide ends up being is that if you open up your store, or if you want to go to a store, it's because you are a bad person, because you are immoral, and because you don't care about people dying, okay? And so this is pertinent not only because of lockdown, coronavirus, some of the things we've been talking about, but because of these are the culture wars. And again, politics is not an ultimate thing for me, but culture wars really matter because they affect the way that we view our faith and the way we live out our faith, I should say. And once you start seeing where the dividing line happens, when you begin to be bullied by the media or bullied by a governor, okay? Now, I'm not saying that the governor is wrong for what he wants to do. That's not my decision. I don't live in Pennsylvania. I don't know what it's like in Pennsylvania. But then to start saying that whoever wants to open is an immoral person, that is when the media or the government begins to bully you into what I call a moral submission. And I am so tired. As a Christian, I am so sick and tired of being told how to live my life, especially from people who are heathens, all right? Especially from people who don't have the same standard of, righteous living that I do. So they're telling me that I have to do what they want to do. So the way that they can bully you is if they can boil it down to something that really is a fake it's a fake premise, all right? So if you boil it down, the fake premise is if you love people, you won't open. And if you open, you hate people. And so those are the kind of things we see. And again, this podcast today is not about coronavirus lockdown. It's not about opening up. This is really about culture wars. It's really about being bullied into submission. And that's something that I really, really hate. So I'm going to expound on one of the things that I'm finding extremely disgusting right now. And sometimes what I do is I expound at the very end. I come on and tell you what I think. Let me tell you the conclusion now, in case you're bored and you're like, I don't want to hear what John has to say. He's talking too much. Let me hit you with it right now, son. Here's what I'm getting at. People of faith, we do not need to be bullied into something because of what I call, fake choices, all right? Fake choices. If you do this, then you're a bad person. Or if you do this, you're a good person. Everything in our world right now is a culture war, and it is all being politicized. And I want to encourage people of faith, and I'll do so at the end of this podcast again, at the end of the episode. I want to encourage people of faith to live your life based on what you believe, all right? And so me as a Christian, and I'm hoping and assuming that a lot of the people watching Cooper stuff also believe, like I do, that the Bible is God's word. So we base what we believe based on what God tells us to do. That is the standard. And then we try our very best that we can to apply that standard to the various culture wars that are happening. But if someone comes in and says, hey, this is what the choice is between A and B, and in your heart you know that's a false choice, then we don't need to feel like we have to do what they want us to do so that they think we are good people. Because in the end, it doesn't matter if they think we're good people, right? So that is what I'm going to end this whole podcast with once we come back to it at the end. And the reason I say that is because, again, look, I love America. I love politics. I hope that America goes on for hundreds of years. I really love this country. But we need to remind ourselves as people of faith that America is not the kingdom of God, all right? America is government, and all government is corrupt. All government is, led by men, even though we believe the Bible says that God puts leaders into positions. Yes, of course, we believe that. But this is not New Jerusalem, all right? It's America. And if America falls, that's okay, because the kingdom of God is unstoppable, all right? If all the things we believe in with democracy and our republic and yada, 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 that's okay because the word of God stands forever. So it's not about America, but it is about how to live my faith through what we are seeing happen now. So having said that, why don't we jump straight into what I want to talk about? We're in an amazing moment right now. There's something happening that I'm sure you know about, and it is this, that Joe Biden, who is running for president, it's a presidential year, obviously, has been accused of sexual assault from something years ago. We're going to jump into that, all right? The reason it's an incredible thing that's happening is because we're reigniting all of the hashtag #MeToo, battlefield that happened a few years ago from the Judge Kavanaugh thing. For those of you who don't know, about 2 years ago, President Trump had nominated a Supreme Court judge called Brett Kavanaugh, and a sexual allegation came out against him, and it just ignited this massive hashtag -- movement. Now, let me first start with this. See, a lot of people don't know that the -- movement actually started over a decade ago. I think 2007, I believe it is. And so the woman that is kind of credited for starting it, I don't remember her name, but I was reading an article with her that was really interesting. And my understanding of it is that how -- started was as a small organization that was really given to helping people in that area. If I remember her right, I think she said it was mostly minority women they were helping. But the idea was that they could create an atmosphere, number one, where they could kind of educate women. But this might sound silly for some people, especially in 2020. It doesn't sound silly to me at all, but it might to some. that sometimes there would be women, girls that don't know what they are experiencing was actually sexual harassment. Now, to some conservative, I'm conservative, but to some conservatives that feels like, oh, that's just a talking point. I know it's not a talking point because I've seen it, all right? And I've experienced some similar things in my own life, all right? But if you are a naive person, and if you haven't been taught like the ways of the world and things like that, I mean, I sit my kids down and I say, hey, look, if somebody ever does this, if somebody ever says this, if they ever do blah, 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 here's what they're getting at, all right? I explain it to them thoroughly because a lot of people don't know that what they have experienced, like that feeling that I know that a lot of women have felt, you know, in the workplace where somebody's touching them over and over and it's unwanted and they're like, oh, I just wish they would, oh, stop touching me. I know that that's real. Now, listen, I'm a dude, all right? I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 190 pounds. I know what it's like to be touched by people when I wish they wouldn't, okay? And in other words, I'm a big enough guy that I'm never afraid of anybody, but I just don't like, stop it. It's creepy. Leave me alone, you know? And having said that, I'm a guy, I'm not a person who is against physical touching, all right? I hug any fan that I meet that wants to hug me, I hug. I'm not weird about those kind of things, but I have had those experiences in my life where there are people that I'm like, you give me the wrong vibe and you touch me once, you touch me twice, I'm over it. Leave me alone, right? And I'm a 6 foot tall dude, all right? So the point is that as Me Too is starting, I believe, this is just my personal opinion, nobody get mad at me, I believe that this started as something really good, this educating women saying, hey, just so you know, that feeling you had, that's called sexual harassment, all right? Or it's just, maybe it's a harassment, but it's inappropriate, and it is okay for you to not want that to go on. And you should have an environment where you should be able to say to your boss or to somebody at your school, whatever the situation is I don't feel comfortable with this. And say it in an atmosphere where there's no retaliation. So the idea was that, of course, you know, if you work for somebody, if you're a woman, you work for somebody and you come out and say, hey, there was a sexual, you know, inappropriate touching happening and nobody believes you, then you can lose your job or you can be demoted or whatever that may be. There's obvious things that can happen. And so the idea of Me Too was really starting, number one, as education. And then number two is saying we want to have an atmosphere where there's not this sort of like retaliation, all right? And my understanding is that really what really ignited the Me Too movement was around 2016, 2017, when we began to see a lot of culture wars happening as President Trump had been elected and so on and so forth. All right. That is my understanding of how Me Too started. Maybe some of those details are not correct. Maybe there's things I don't understand. But if you want to ask me my opinion, do I think that there are a lot of women who have been treated poorly, who have been touched inappropriately, have had to deal with unwanted touching, have been sexually harassed, have had things said to them in the workplace that are absolutely inappropriate, or even worse, have been sexually assaulted and there were never repercussions of it, and maybe they felt if they were to say something they'd lose their job. I absolutely know that that's a fact. I've seen it. I know people that have had to deal with it personally, and I just think that it would be ignorant to say that doesn't happen, all right? So that's what I think about that. The next thing I think about Me Too is the other side of the coin, which is what happened 2016, 2017, and hit hard when the Brett Kavanaugh thing, and that is that all of a sudden the Me Too movement became so politicized that it almost seems like it got like hijacked, all right? It's like they just, somebody grabbed it and strangled it, turned it into something that I think maybe it wasn't supposed to mean. You know what I think of? If you're watching video, I just did like a stranglehold, or I was wringing out a towel. If you can't see me, I was wringing out a towel, but it just reminded me of a wonderful Chris Farley scene on Tommy Boy when he's talking about, remember when he's sitting at like the diner and he's talking about his sale and he's like, here's what I do with my sale. He's got that, it's like a dinner roll, and he's like, I love my dinner roll, I love my sale, and then he's like, and then I take it and I go and I strangle it and I kill my pet. Anyway, It just popped in my mind. If you haven't seen Tommy Boy, go watch it. It still holds up. It is still hilarious. He's like, I killed my pet or my sale. I killed my sale. That is, to me, sort of what happened with the Me Too movement. It got hijacked and turned into something. I don't know enough about it to say it got turned into something that they hate now. I have no idea, but the feeling I had as I've read things is that that the Me Too movement is saying, well, we never wanted to go this far because what happened, as I'm sure you remember, when Brett Kavanaugh was going through his process of vetting, I guess you would call it, changed the entire game and lit a culture war. It is one of the only times that I have been really, really angry, okay? Because I was in my tour bus, watching this happen and thinking, oh my gosh, like what is happening to our country? So let me just rewind a little bit. Here's what happened with Brett Kavanaugh. He's been a judge for years and years and years, 20 years or something. And he is now being nominated to become a Supreme Court justice from President Trump. All right? Huge politics in this because Brett Kavanaugh is kind of a pro-lifer, and conservatives see him as a pro-life judge, you might call it. The liberals see him as someone who could possibly one day help overturn Roe versus Wade, which has incredible political ramifications. All of a sudden, a sexual accusation comes out against Brett Kavanaugh. But here's the kicker. And I don't know in my life if I've ever really quite seen anything like this, but the kicker is that the accusation was 26 years ago, okay? And it was by a woman called Dr. Ford. And Dr. Ford said it happened 26 years ago. I don't remember what year it was. I don't remember what month it was. But I vaguely remember the house. I vaguely remember who was there. And the witnesses that she said would remember it, and she gave a couple witnesses, they looked into it, and these witnesses say, no, I don't remember that. In fact, one of them said, not only do I not remember that happening, I've never even met Brett Kavanaugh. So all of this is going on. Well, this started a huge, unbelievable firestorm, okay? So I want to make it really clear before I dig into this, because I know people are on the edge of their seats. Some people are ready to yell at me. Here's the thing. How could I possibly know if Brett Kavanaugh did this or not? I have no idea. I always felt from the very beginning, how can we have any idea? There's not going to be any evidence from 26 years ago, especially when the apparently one or two people that knew about it say that it never happened or that they don't remember that happening. I am not saying this because I am saying that I think Brett Kavanaugh is innocent. I have no opinion on whether he is innocent or not, all right? So, therefore, I have no idea if Dr. Ford, the accuser, is lying or not. I have no earthly idea. What I do know is that we cannot live in a country where somebody can just say you did something and now my life is ruined forever just because someone said it happened. There's no evidence and there's no witnesses. And in fact, the witnesses say, no, never even met him before. We can't live in a place like that. You know why? Because I'm a dude and I don't think that I don't want that ever happening against me or my son or my dad or my friends or my nephews. We cannot live in a world like that. That's the one thing that I know. Well, I was fine personally for the FBI investigation. I'm like, good, do it. Let's find out if this guy did this. We just have no way of knowing. Well, what we began seeing happen, as all you guys are going to remember, is that the hashtag #MeToo movement ended up becoming politicized, not into a thing of just a woman's story should be heard, which I agree with. I think everybody agrees. I haven't met anybody that says a woman shouldn't be heard, okay? I was totally up for that. As far as I know, everybody was up for that. We had an FBI investigation into Kavanaugh. We had a Senate hearing in front of the entire world. We all watched her story unfold. Well, all of a sudden, the hashtag #MeToo movement turned not just it didn't just say a woman should be heard. It turned into a woman must be believed. All right. And so that is what really threw me for a loop. I was really scared. I was scared for what this is going to mean because we saw all of these people up there saying a woman has to be believed, and if you don't believe her, then you hate women. And that comes down, remember earlier I was saying like the false choice, that the media pushes a false choice. And for normal people, and I think the majority of people, we all went, I wonder if he really did that or not. I wonder if she's lying or not. Most of us were like, how can we have any opinion on this sort of thing when there's no evidence? We don't know. But the media and all of the people on TV boiled it down to something saying, if you don't believe her, you're a misogynist. Well, the new repercussions of that began, being that the evangelical vote highly went to President Trump, like 80% or something like that. And because the evangelical vote highly wants Brett Kavanaugh to be the judge, because the evangelical vote usually is built on mainly on the support for the pro-life movement, then basically evangelicals don't mind if women are sexually assaulted. And all of a sudden the pressure starts coming on Christian people to not support Brett Kavanaugh, to not support, President Trump or whatever it may be. That is the false choice that I cannot stand. And I have to give some props to my friend Scotty, who is one of my really close friends. He works for me, and he was in the bus, and I was just livid. I was just mad. I was like, this cannot be the country we live in. I even saw somebody on Twitter, and I don't remember who, but it's a very, very big, one of the big, I don't mean founders of Me Too, but a big proponent for Me Too, basically come out and said, you know what? Even if Brett Kavanaugh basically gets hurt from this, even if he loses the nomination, even if he can't go back to his old job because this lingering accusation means he can never again do that. Basically, it doesn't matter, because women have been so abused in this nation for so long, and they haven't been believed for so long, that even if a few innocent men have to get thrown under the bus to see change, it's about time that the roles were reversed. So basically, women have suffered so long, I don't mind if some men suffer. So I was really mad about it because, you know why? I have a son. I have a teenage son. And we've seen this sort of thing play out on TV. And I remember my friend Scotty said, John, they don't even mean this. Don't worry about it. This is just politics. And the reason I'm giving Scotty props is because he is absolutely right. Now, me and Scotty don't always agree on politics, and we don't agree on all this, but he's like, nobody believes what they're saying. It's just that this is just being used as a political tool. And I was like, no, it's not. Look at what they said. It's in black and white. Well, he was absolutely right. How do we know he's absolutely right? Because here we are 2 years later. We are in the midst of a presidential election, and now President Biden has been accused. I'm sure you've noticed it's about 6 weeks ago. He got accused. It is also from someone from 30 some odd years ago. I don't remember what. And this is from a woman called Tara Reid. Tara Reid actually worked for Joe Biden 30 years ago. And this wasn't just an issue of sexual harassment, she claims. It is an issue of sexual assault, okay? He apparently assaulted her in the hallway. So anyway, what we look at now, the difference between Tara Reid's accusation and Dr. Ford's from a few years ago is that there are actually a few people who say, yes, basically, we heard this story. We know about the story. Even this bizarre, I don't know if you were following it, but the weirdest thing is that apparently Tara Reid, who is the accuser of Joe Biden, apparently 20 some odd years ago, her mom called into Larry King Live and asked a question and basically said, yeah, my daughter was sexually assaulted in DC from a senator or whatever, or from a powerful person in government, and doesn't know how to tell people, doesn't know how to be believed. So there are some corroborating witnesses in this one, but it took 5 weeks, and none of the, I would say Fox News covered it, but none of the other cable news organizations covered it at all. And so there's this big glaring weakness. Now, before we go further, I want to say I have the same exact standard now as I had for Kavanaugh. I am not saying that I think Joe Biden assaulted this woman. I am not saying that this woman, Reid, is telling the truth or lying. How can I have any idea? I have no idea. I think the very same standard we applied to Kavanaugh should apply to Biden, which is that, yeah, it should be vetted. We should have an investigation into the thing. The reason I'm so mad and the reason I say this is a massive culture war is because all of the people, well, I shouldn't say all, 98% of the people that were telling people like you and like me that we have a false choice to make, which is believe all women or else you hate women, are now saying, oh no, women should be believed, but it doesn't mean that we should believe them. It's basically what they're saying. They're saying, oh, they should be believed, but it's got to be vetted. So I have some things printed out that I want to read you guys so you understand the differences between what people said then for Kavanaugh and what people said now. Okay, check it out. Okay, actually, first I'm going to start with this quote. This is from a woman called Penny Nance. She is the CEO and president of Concerned Women for America. She's a sexual assault victim herself. This is what she says. The very people who came after Brett Kavanaugh with tiki torches and pitchforks are the very women who have given a complete pass to Joe Biden and have refused to entertain the idea that there's a possibility of guilt, all right? That is absolutely true. It's actually stunning, okay? So I'm going to read these things. So Kirsten Gillibrand, who was running for president on the Democratic ticket, this is what she said in 2018 during the Kavanaugh thing. She said this: I believe Dr. Blasey Ford. Here's why I believe her. She's risked everything, her own safety, to come out on the record to say Brett Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her. She told her therapist and her husband about it 5 years ago. She told a friend about it a year ago. And she says she told a reporter about it, blah, 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 blah. And she says, so why are my colleagues moving so fast to confirm this judge? All right, this is after there was an FBI investigation into him, all right? So that's what she says then. After the investigation and the fact that Dr. Blasey Ford had told her therapist 5 years ago. 5 years ago about something that happened 26 years ago. Well, now what does she say about Tara Reade? This is unbelievable stuff. She says, so they ask her about it. Basically, they're saying, well, you said then that you believe, so what do you think about Tara Reade's thing against Joe Biden? She says, so when we say we believe women, it's for this explicit intention of making sure there's space for all women to come forward to speak their truth, to be heard. And in this allegation, that is what Tara Reade has done. She has come forward and she has spoken. And there's been investigations in several outlets, which, by the way, there was investigations at this point. That's just something she said she was wrong about. Vice President Biden has vehemently denied these allegations, and I support President Biden. And then somebody asked her something else, and she says, they basically, is this hypocritical, is basically what they're saying. And she says, no, and I stand by Vice President Biden. He has devoted his life to supporting women, and he has vehemently denied this allegation, all right? So it's believe all women, but we don't have to actually believe them. We believe them initially, but we don't have to believe them, after, they've been vetted by friends. Okay, next is Kamala Harris. I actually believe, I'm putting it out right here, I think Kamala Harris is going to be the vice president nominee. We don't know this, but I want you to remember, if it happens, I want you to go, John, you were totally right. I think there's probably, I can't remember, there are 4 or 5 nominees right now, I believe, but I think Kamala Harris will be it. This is what she said in 2018 about Blasey Ford, Dr. Ford. I believe her. Listen, first of all, anybody who comes forward at this point to be prepared to testify in the United States Senate against someone who's being nominated to one of the most powerful positions in the United States government, that takes an extraordinary amount of courage. And then she was further asked about, well, why did Ford choose to come out with her story? And Kamala Harris said this: she's doing it, I believe, because she knows that this is an important matter. It's a serious matter, and she has the courage to come forward. She has nothing to gain, all right? So that's basically 2 people that have now said, oh, well, I know they did it because they had absolutely nothing to gain from it. This was a really hard decision. They're really courageous, and I believe them because they did it. And so now what does Kamala Harris say now about Tara Reade? Here's what she says. First of all, I have spent the bulk of my career fighting against abuse of women and children and for empowerment of women and children and all people. Listen, this woman has a right to tell her story, and I believe that. And I believe Joe Biden believes that too. I've spent my whole career fighting, like you said, Joe, to give women a voice. And this brings up, I think, a bigger structural issue, frankly, which is that women must be able to speak without fear of retaliation. And I can only, on the issue of Joe, I can only speak to the Joe Biden I know. He's been a lifelong fighter in terms of stopping violence against women. He's been the leader, I think really most people would agree, in the United States Senate on the Violence Against Women Act. So, as I said, she has a right to tell her story and she should not face any repercussions for that. But the Joe Biden I know is somebody that really has fought for women and empowerment of women and women's equality and rights. I believe Joe. All right. So let's look at someone who is a really big, I guess you would say, celebrity person for the Me Too movement. Kind of, maybe unfairly, which is part of what I'm saying here, kind of became one of the faces of the Me Too movement. Alyssa Milano, she was an actress, and she's all over social media all the time. Here's what she says then with Brett Kavanaugh, and this is what we were being preached at a lot, okay? She says, I demand that our senators vote to reject Brett Kavanaugh as the next justice on the Supreme Court. Every person who refuses to loudly and openly reject Brett Kavanaugh's nomination is telling every generation of Americans that an alleged abuser's career is more valuable than a survivor's humanity. And the highest court in our land is no place for an alleged sexual offender to sit. She had a tweet then during and that wasn't a trial, what do you call it, during the Senate hearing thing. It was a tweet, and she says, I'm in D.C. because I don't believe any man's misogyny should take precedent over a survivor's humanity. Alyssa Milano was definitely one of the faces of, when I think of Me Too, I think of Alyssa Milano. And I think that's actually quite unfair to what the Me Too movement actually is, yet that's kind of what it became. That's what I mean when I say it kind of got hijacked. The movement got hijacked by some people. But that's what was all over. And so that's what began to be preached at us over and over and over. You have to believe the woman or else you're a misogynist. And if anybody, says that you did it, all right? Well, what does Alyssa Milano have to say now about Biden? This is truly remarkable. I couldn't believe it. Every news outlet in the world, when they saw her say it, began to put it out. Everybody's like, whoa, this is a change. Here's what she has to say after the Biden accusation came out. It falls upon women to navigate within the system of men's design to make pragmatic choices that we hope will lead us to a more equal future. If you don't know what that means, what she's trying to say is, it actually seems like life is full of really hard choices, and sometimes it's not as black and white as you would think. Sometimes you are weighing greater evils. Does that sound familiar? It does, because that's what life is like. You have to weigh a whole bunch of stuff, like, as I said it on my thing a couple weeks ago, you're weighing the personal morality of an individual versus a person's politics and the things they want to implement. You're saying, I really, this issue is really important to me. This issue of, the homeless is really important to me. And I like the way that this candidate, I like his policies for homeless, but I don't really like that candidate's policies for the unborn. You're weighing things. That basically what she's saying is, I just grew up this year. This has made me grow up and realize there's lots of things to consider. But let's keep going. What else she says? She says, I still support Joe Biden because I believe that's the best choice for that future. So she goes on, and I want to read this to you because you're talking about somebody that was militantly against she said, if you, in the past, against Kavanaugh, if you support Kavanaugh, then you are supporting misogyny, all right? That means you are supporting men that hate women, men that think it's okay to sexually harass women at work, men who sexually assault women at work. If you support this, then that means that you are a misogynist. And that's what she was saying then. Now listen to what she has to say. She says, we have to societally change that mindset to believing women, but that does not mean at the expense of giving men their due process and investigating situations. Right? Duh. I just don't feel comfortable throwing away a decent man that I've known for 15 years in this time of complete chaos without there being a thorough investigation. Right? Duh. She continues, I never thought Me Too would be something that would destroy innocent men. We don't want that to happen either. So we have to find this balance in the Believe Women movement and also giving men their due process and realizing that we're destroying lives if we publicly don't go through the right steps in order to find out if an accusation is credible or not. You know what? Amen. And that's 2 years too late. Took you 2 years too late to wake up with how ridiculous you were being 2 years ago and had everyone in the whole world that knows a guy scared to death. Because it's not just dudes that don't want to lose their job or go to jail or be called a molester for the rest of their lives. It's not just dudes that are scared of that. It's any woman that has a son. It's any woman that has a husband. It's any woman that has a dad. It's everybody. Thanks for waking up to it. So we continue on. Stacey Abrams, who is also a candidate for VP, then she said for Kavanaugh 2018, here's what she had to say about it. After the courageous and compelling testimony from Dr. Blasey Ford yesterday, it is shameful that Kavanaugh's nomination is being rushed forward. I believe women and I believe survivors of violence always deserve to be supported and to have their voices heard. What does Stacey Abrams say now, because she's still supporting Biden and wants to be the vice president nominee? She says, I believed then and I believe now that women deserve to be heard because too often they are not. And Tara Reade deserved to be heard and listened to and investigated. What was happening to Christine Blasey Ford was that there was no investigation. Wrong. There was an FBI investigation, by the way. There was a rush to move the conversation forward so that no investigation was conducted. I believe Joe Biden. I believe the Biden I know. Oh, that's really nice, isn't it? Elizabeth Warren, this is what she had to say. She's also, of course, a candidate for vice president right now. 2018, this is what she said. I still believe Dr. Blasey Ford, and like the man who appointed him, Brett Kavanaugh should be impeached. So she still believed her. She has not made a comment about Biden. But here's the point. Any of one of the women that are hoping to get the presidential nod from Biden right now, I think there's 4, I can't remember. Every one of them is going to have a pretty hard thing to defend here, because every one of them basically said on the accusation alone in 2018, the accusation alone demanded that a woman be heard. So they kept saying a woman has to be heard, and so I believe her. Now they are changing what it means. So while I am glad they're changing what it means, I actually think for the Me Too movement, this actually makes a whole lot more sense, because we do not want to live in a world where people are just, somebody said you did it and you're automatically convicted. That's not the world we want to live in. I am actually glad that some of the people that became the face of this movement are actually changing, because it feels to me, I might be wrong about this, it feels to me that this change is actually more consistent with how the Me Too movement started. So while I am glad, because I do believe, I don't really have any absolute proof of this, by the way, but I tend to believe that 80%, maybe 85% of the claims that are made against men are actually probably true. Now, something that's going to make some people mad, I don't believe all women just because they say it, but I do tend to think, I think there's a lot more of this that goes on than we say. I've known people that have dealt with stuff like this. I've seen it happen. So I tend to believe that's a thing. But to say that just because they say it means that I am ready to take it as gospel truth and ruin somebody's life is not a good thing. So while I am glad that all these people are changing their tune, the reason I am mad is because it shows the absolute disgusting hypocrisy of these people, that all it was politicized. It was only for political expediency. And that is because when Brett Kavanaugh was coming in to be a Supreme Court justice, he was a pro-life guy, and it made all the, all of the pro-choice people really mad, and they were willing to do anything and say anything in order to get him out. Now, guess what? To myself, note to self, duh, it's politics. It's not real, and I know that, and I'm really annoyed that I forgot it because I was mad, really, really mad during that time. Not because I cared if Kavanaugh got nominated or not. I could care less. I don't even know who he is. Never even heard of him before. It wasn't because of that. It was based on the principle that we're going to change our way of justice system. All because of this. I just could not see a way that would work. So here we are in this new situation where I'm kind of glad, because I'm glad that we're kind of coming back to like reasonability, and we're coming back to me. It was something that's very rational and makes a lot of sense, but I am so annoyed at these people. So at the end of all of this, where am I going with this? Does it matter for politics? It kind of matters to me. But what really matters is the effect that the Me Too movement, now I'm not talking about how it started, I'm talking about the hijacked, politicized version of the Me Too movement that boiled everything down to a fake choice between believing all women or that you hate women. That greatly has affected people of faith. It greatly affected the church, all right? And I will give you a couple of reasons why. Here's why. Because it turned into a thing that was, wait a minute, I thought that Christians like women. And I thought that Christians think that sexual assault is a bad thing. Therefore, if Christians don't jump on to the Believe All Women campaign, which I'm talking about believe all women in the sense that they meant it in 2018. Believe all women in 2018 meant believe all women and all men are lying, okay? All men are guilty. That's what they meant by then. So they want all of the Christian people to jump on to believe all women, and if we don't, then they say, oh yeah, Christians are patriarchal. They don't, and they're not on our side. Then what happens is that a whole lot of Christian people start going, I feel like I got to jump on this because I want to stand up for justice, because God has called us to be a people of justice, and God has called us to be a light in the world. They'll know us by our love, and we're going to be a bright, shining, city on a hill. And that means that we have to believe all women, or else they're going to say that we're misogynists, and too many Christians can't live with the world telling them that they are bad people. Do you see where I'm going with this? I don't like to be called a misogynist because I am not one. But if somebody calls me a misogynist based on the fact that I don't believe all women to the point of believing that a man is guilty just because someone said it, well then, if that's what the choice is between, then if you must call me a misogynist, then I guess I have to be okay with that. Because that doesn't seem like justice to me. That doesn't seem like God's justice to me. That doesn't seem like the way that as a Christian I should live my life and behave, because guess what? At some point you're going to be just like Kamala Harris and Stacey Abrams that say, I believe the Joe Biden that I know. Do you see what I'm saying? I believe the Brett Kavanaugh that I know. Does that sound familiar? I believe the John Cooper that I know. I believe the father that I've had. I believe the brother that I've had. I believe the son that I raised. This is what you're going to deal with. So I want to encourage Christian people, as we are dealing with this massive battleground of Me Too things, we don't need to start becoming weak. We don't need to be bullied into going, oh, they're giving me a false choice and I just don't know what to do. I just don't know how I'm going to deal with it if somebody calls me a misogynist. You know what? Grow up and grow something else as well, okay? Get some muscles. Don't be afraid of it, We might come to a place in culture where we have to be willing for people to say things about us that are maybe not true, are not fair, because they have boiled things down to a false choice, something that is just absolutely not real. Culture wars, they're real and they're here to stay. Thank you so much for watching Cooper Stuff. Leave a comment, and I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Rock on. Cooper Stuff!